when you don't have unity as a whole at the bottom, you will definitely not have unity as a whole on top, at the top. But then people want a movement of God. A lot of black women despise one another. I just tell it like it is. They can't stand one another. Are jealous of one another. Envious of one another. A lot of black men or males despise one another. Are jealous of one another. They can't stand one another. They kill each other in the street. They kill each other in the streets. They're not standing side by side saying, yes, this is my brother. They're looking at one another. Oh, this is my rival. So when God look at stuff like that, but these same folks want to be elevated. And then he could look at, I say he could look, not putting words in Father's mouth or anything, or trying to predict his actions or anything. But I'm just saying he could look at other ethnicities and say, well, they wicked too, but they're united. Some of them are wicked, not all of them. Whoever the ethnicities are. Could be various ethnicities of different types of people in the world. I feel like it's kind of like the greater good, lesser evil type of scenario. The greater good, lesser evil type. Or the just as evil. Equal, because sin is sin, wickedness is wickedness, but they're united. I dare not try to figure out the mind of God, how Father thinks. I don't know why he allows what he allows, but everything that he does is for a reason. And now, not only quote unquote black people, and I know there's still people that don't, well, they're not going to identify with their actual ethnic background because a lot of people don't know what it is. So, I'll say black. I've seen something on the internet about where, what is the Kushites call themselves black. When I say black or I say, oh, I'm not black, and I think when a lot of black people say they're not black, what they're saying, I think, is they know that they come from a certain continent that has, that has a name. And that's really who they are. But their identity was washed by way of slavery and the United States of America. The olden, y'all know what I'm talking about. The folks that invaded the land. Black people's identity, their ethnicity was blotted out by those folks. So that's the reason why I think a lot of people say they're not black, because they feel like it's a term that their oppressors labeled them as, because they didn't know what to call them, because black people come from various tribes, and they're not only tribes, but some black people aren't even black. They're some, another ethnicity. Some black people walking around on the applications, they might put black, but they're really West Indian, or they're really Haitian, or they're really, I'll just say, we use the term black people because, it's what people utilize in the United States and all across the world, as it pertains, I guess, to legal documents or whatever. But anyway, my point is, it would take, I forgot my initial point I was making, but I will say this. It's going to take a mighty move of God to reverse the hand of the devil without God making an intense effort. So mighty move as it pertains to our perceptions and also, some mighty move. But what I'm saying is nothing is too hard for God. Father doesn't have to muster up the energy. Well, let me muster up all this energy to flip the script. No, he doesn't have to do that. He said he's God. But when I say a mighty move, mighty according to earth standards, And mighty according to, that he is mighty. He's the almighty God. He can do anything. But he's observing. He's observing right now. Because Father, he's not locked into anything. And definitely not locked into the perimeters of time. What we call time. And seasons. But according to the Holy Scriptures, Babylon is fallen. And it doesn't say it's going to be handed into the hands of black folks specifically. But it did say that I believe it says the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. So now we have to classify what is wealth. Because if money is man-made, yes, I guess that could be classified as a form of wealth. But when I say money has no value, what I'm trying to say is that it's still something that humanity conjured up or came up with to dominate, to promote dominance, rule and control over other people, even their own. Money is not necessary. Nothing that humanity has created to oppress other people is necessary. It's not necessary to pay a light bill. Why? Energy comes from the sun. So you mean to tell me if nobody pays their light bill, there's somebody with a switch that's going to shut that switch down? Because that person didn't pay their light bill. Why not just leave the switch on and let everybody have lights and electricity for free? Why do we have to pay for electricity? That's stupid. Now you think about that. Think about the bills that we have to pay that don't make no sense. Look at how much money a lot of these car insurance companies charge. And they know that from an economical standpoint and economically speaking, the financial condition of society does not support their requirements. Look at all these things that are overpriced, ridiculously overpriced, that we have to pay for, even food. But economically speaking, from an economical standpoint, humanity as a whole, a lot of them, not everybody's, because some people have it, but they can't support it. How in the world can you set the bar up here when you know the people can't reach it financially and economically? To me, that's the strategy of a dummy. To say, pay $980 for, we'll say, pay $980 for this little garage. Pay $980 for this garage. And this is the only thing that all of humanity would have to live in. You know, we've converted things and now everybody has to live. I'm just saying, y'all. Let's just say everybody has to live in a garage. Pay $980. But then you walk into your workplaces and they say, okay, well, we pay $1.50 an hour and you will work 3 hours a week. The math ain't mathing, y'all. The math ain't mathing. This country is collapsing because the system is stupid. The system itself, the way it's set up, is stupid. It's very stupid. It's stupid. You make money, they take your money, and they waste it on stupid things, and no people out here need homes. And then they build these homes and dangle them in your face and put a price tag, a hefty price tag on it. And say, affordable homes. I was thinking, never mind. I was going to say, the devil is a lie. Because if you've got people out there living U-Hauls, and I'm not saying that, you know what, let me tell you something. From a human standpoint, yes, there is something wrong with having human beings live in something that their oppressors don't even live in. Yes, there's something wrong with that picture. And then their oppressors, the money that they're spending comes out of the pocket of the folks that's living in the U-Hauls, probably. Something's wrong with that picture. Or living in U-Hauls and other things. Something is wrong with that picture. Now, if they're doing it by their own choice, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. They want to do that. Maybe they have some sort of, maybe they're moving in silence and they have some type of goal, and maybe they don't want, a lot of people don't want people to know what they have. So they portray this image to where they have little to nothing. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, you on top of your game. You doing you. But I'm talking about the people that want to live in an actual home and they can't afford it, and they have families and they have little children and spouses and significant others. And you got people stealing your money. Well, I guess you can't afford a home when before you can even get your paycheck, you've got so many taxes taken out, and that money, where's that money going? Where is it going? Because it's definitely not building homes. It's definitely not improving communities. It's definitely not putting food on people's tables, a lot of people's tables, because I'm sure a lot of children are still going to bed hungry at night, if they go to bed at all. A lot of them probably don't even have beds in their homes. They can't afford one, probably. And this is not, what I'm about to say is not directed towards anybody specific. It's just directed towards if the shoe fit. Your oppressors think that they have all the intelligence and can't even run this country efficiently. In an efficient manner, so that you become sufficient, so that life is sufficient for you. Don't even know how to run the country. And I'm not talking about nobody specific. I'm talking about whoever the shadow people are. I'm not addressing one person, because see, let me tell you something about the setup. People will attack a group of individuals or a certain individual, not realizing there's people behind them that are most likely forcing their hand. They may want to do this, but they're forced to do that. And then the onlookers are coming at them, not even knowing it might not even be them. It could be who's behind them that is greater in number than them. Y'all. Anybody that believes one person run the world. Because even if in certain countries it looks like that, they've got a whole, I'm hearing regime, and then I'm hearing they've got a whole army of like-minded individuals behind them, backing them. And they outnumber the people that they want to dominate, rule, and control. Because the people that they want to dominate, rule, and control were not doing what their enemies were doing when their enemies were doing what they were doing. Your enemies were training. You were in your leisure. Your enemies were studying you. You were socializing with one another and enjoying life. You were not studying them. Whoever. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. There were some that were. But it was not enough people to make a difference. Your enemy was trying to make you think they were there to protect you. But what they really were oppositional forces formed as a united front and an army against you. And what society should have been doing, instead of, and I'm not talking about anybody specific, so don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about where the shoe fits. Instead of getting drunk, getting high on drugs, sleeping around, acting like certain folks out there didn't have no sense, focused on other things, you should have been watching your enemies like they were watching you. You should have been studying your enemies like they were studying you. But there's no time for woulda, shoulda, coulda. Now is the time to lean and depend on God Almighty. and follow his lead and move by way of his hand and listen for his command and listen for his orders and heed his orders and let him do what you cannot do. Let God do what you don't have the capability to do, because God has the power to flip the script just like that. But the question is, will he? And then another question lies within, I'm going to make up this word, questionability. Should he? Because for the folks that want to be on top, how you going to act if he put you up there? Because for a lot of them, they hate each other right now. They can't stand one another right now. They're murdering one another right now. They're on drugs right now, so more money means more drugs. Look at how a lot of quote-unquote black folks acted in Hollywood before it crashed and burned. At these mansion parties. Oh, so that's what you're going to do when you get wealth? That? Okay, well, now I see why God might be sitting still, or it looks like. Because, for one thing, I feel like Father sees how folks are going to act when they think they got a little bit of wealth, but ain't in charge of nothing. Not really. So if he really flipped the script and the oppressors were at the bottom and those folks were at the top, show enough woe unto this land. Show enough woe if what was in Hollywood takes over. Just because it has brown, yellow, or black skin. Are you following me? Look at what would have power if the script were flipped. And a lot of people say, well, look at what's got power now. Yeah, I know, but still. So all I can say is that God knows what he's doing. We don't. We don't have to. He just said through his word, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path.